Nintendo has become one of the largest video game companies in the world. In fact, it is valued at roughly $80 to $90 billion. In this video, we'll be talking about how Nintendo rose to where it is today. And to do that, we need to go back to the time when video games were considered new. Back then, Nintendo was just a little-known toy company. At the time, arcades were really taking off, and Nintendo wanted to try expanding. So, they released Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong did really well. So well, in fact, that Nintendo made another game. A game that would go on to make history. You all know what I'm talking about. Mario. Mario was what Nintendo needed to expand to the home console market. This was at a perfect time because so few high-quality games were being made at the time. This is where Nintendo's strategy would be formed. To get a continual stream of sales, Nintendo created a ton of unique and popular IP, or intellectual property. For those of you who don't know, IP can be a specific world or character, such as Mario. Nintendo released many IP, such as Metroid, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, and Kirby. This is when a new competitor entered the market. Sega released their first console with pretty considerable success. However, it would not last long. You see, Sega was failing where Nintendo was winning. Sega didn't have good IP. They had one, Sonic the Hedgehog, but one IP simply isn't enough. And the problem was that Nintendo kept creating new IP with each console release, whereas Sega just stuck to one IP. Thing is, consoles cost a lot of money, and while some people do buy a console just to play one game, it's true, what makes them feel comfortable with that decision is the fact that there will be many more cool games coming out. But Sega wasn't doing that. They were sticking to Sonic the Hedgehog. This led to their inevitable downfall. Now Nintendo was making the important decision to move into the 3D, with the N64. But this is where they made their first real mistake. They made Sony mad. You see, they wanted to have a disk drive in their new system, so they hired Sony to do it. But after the drive was built, they were like, you know what, never mind, you can just scrap the thing. This understandably upset Sony. It upset them so much that they built their own console. That console would go on to be Nintendo's biggest competition yet. That console was the PlayStation. Sony was the first one other than Nintendo to release many successful IP. That, in addition to having more powerful hardware, let them stay in the console market. At this point, Nintendo was starting to fall off. The GameCube wasn't doing as well as they had hoped, and Sony was really taking over with the PlayStation 2. And then, Microsoft, an even larger company than both of them put together, joined in with the Xbox. Nintendo was understandably worried about a multi-trillion-dollar company being their competitor. So, they decided to use another trick. They created a console so different from the others that it was barely even competing with them. That console was the Wii. The Wii did pretty well. As competition between Microsoft and Sony grew, Nintendo relied on two key strategies to stay in the market: their IP and the fact that they appealed to a different market of people. You see, while Microsoft and Sony appealed more to teens and adults, Nintendo went the route of appealing to children. That meant that it didn't have nearly as much competition. In addition to this, Nintendo also went with the portable console rather than a more powerful one, again setting itself apart from the competition. All this has led to the situation Nintendo is in today, where they have what is basically a monopoly on their IP and market. This allows them to price their games at insane amounts and still get away with it. Nintendo doesn't necessarily make bad games, other than Pokemon Violet and Scarlet. They just overprice their games because they know they can. It is still possible for Nintendo to do the right thing and make good games for a fair price. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we are really close to reaching our goal of 10 subscribers, so let's see if we can do that. I'll see you in the next video.